All right, we have to unmute ourselves first. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am so excited today here to be chatting with you about this topic. Thank you for wherever you're joining from, and please do let us know where you're joining from. I am excited about this topic. So, today, yes, I did prepare a PowerPoint. So, just to kick off, I'm Tiffany Castano. I am CEO, founder, and chief culture strategist here at CEPHR LLC. We are a boutique HR and culture consultancy partnering with small to medium businesses across the United States, helping them operationalize strategies. We are helping them build leaders, build their teams in safe ways. So drop in the chat where you're joining from today. We're very excited to have you all with us here on Team Live, as well as those of you who will be joining on Team Replay. This has been such a fun project for me in understanding the relationship that we have to AI, right? And our organization does a lot around emotional intelligence. You'll hear me represent that sometimes as EQ. So definitely want to make sure that you all are chiming in on this comment. I'm going to share with you some things that maybe we learned as I did a little bit of a poll. But the genesis of this conversation really came about through understanding this. Actually, I was in a meeting through a community, a culture community called the Perk. We love the Perk. The Perk does a lot of great things with leadership and coaching. Actually, today, this morning, not that long ago, we had a call on. Last month was leadership brand. This month was creating vision. So super amazing. And this is where this idea originated. There was a question last month that talked about understanding the leadership brand that you're building, really. And one of the things that came to mind and that came up in the conversation was around how our brains have images, and we have images that we picture first. So that kind of that led me to believe, okay, we're talking about leadership and images with our brains. What does that really mean, and what does it look like, and what is our relationship to AI and leadership and emotional intelligence? And that led me down a 2 hour rabbit hole of things where I was going, okay, so how, in relationship to our leadership style, what does that look like with AI? Can it sense? Can it mimic empathy? Does it have empathy? And you all were so great at sharing that. In the leadership and the culture work that we do, we talk a lot about this, and with our partner, also Indelible Impressions, we look at what are the things that balance the heart and mind, right? And I talked about this last week, actually, earlier this week, in a presentation about balancing this heart and mind approach and not just allowing people to bring their technical skills, but what else is going on. Hopefully you all can hear me and see me. It says I'm live here, and Restream is a little bit, it's a platform that we use, and sometimes you don't always see the chat and all that coming in. So know that I know you're out there. I hope that I get to see that so that I can see and hear all of your wonderful thoughts that you have going on. Okay, so let's kick off here. At any given moment, and again, share your thoughts and questions. At any given moment, you might feel there is, in this advancing technology, we are trying to understand faith, trust, belief. We want to have hope with advancing technology and all of the things that are going on there. But we don't always understand what's going on. So we might feel frustrated. We're all learning this. We might feel joy, like the woman at the top, and we might feel a lot of different emotions. We might wonder, what is our relationship to AI, whether we're starting that or we're on a journey and we've been using this for a while. So these are all things that I want to normalize, because at the heart of emotional intelligence, or EQ, is our emotions. So this could change on any given day. And I'm going to share some of my examples with you of what happened during my experience soon. I really hope this chat function comes up soon, so I don't feel like I'm just chatting with myself. But if you are out there, you have some thoughts, please share. And I'm going to talk about what I learned from originally when we posted this as well. So here's the prompt that started it all. After attending this Perk community, I put into ChatGPT, because my brain was fired up and I was just going a million miles a minute, and I get excited about these things. So I asked it, is AI emotionally intelligent? share your case. I wanted it to prove to me, if you think you are emotionally intelligent, what does that look like? So share your case. So that is what I did. And I then polled the LinkedIn folks and asked, is AI capable of self-awareness? Can emotion be coded? And so the options that I gave for voting in this poll were: it can stimulate, not sense. It depends on who's coding. Nope, emotion can't be coded. And I'm still figuring this out. Let's be honest. And I said this in my post before going live about an hour ago, that we are all probably still figuring this out. So here's the results. Now, it does say 1 day left. I do want to say that I checked this morning shortly before going live. There are still 35 votes, and there is still a little time if you want to get yours in there too, and I can update everyone. So is AI capable of self-awareness? Can emotion be coded is what I asked. And 23% of people said it can simulate, not sense. 11% of you who voted said it depends on who's coding. 43% of you said, nope, emotion can't be coded. And 23% of you said, I'm still figuring this out. So it was an interesting mix. And I'll be honest that it was a little bit different than what I perhaps expected. And I want to just share, thank you for voting in this poll. And I'm curious in the chat, whether you're here on Team Live or in Team Replay, please pop in if you want to expand on why you voted the way you did. Some of you did, and I'm excited to get into that too. So can't wait to share what that looks like. But at the end of the day, let's be honest, we're all still figuring this out, and that is okay. But I'm curious for how people are thinking about this and the conversation that's coming forward. And this is why I wanted to open up this conversation. Again, we talk a lot at CEPHR about EQ. And there has to be a relationship. Often we talk about the relationship because in the boutique offerings that we have, we full diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. No, we're not afraid of the words or the letters. We speak that out boldly because we believe in the human-centric experience, and that includes this advancing technology. So I wanted to fold that in. Often we're talking about DEIB and emotional intelligence, and today I'm folding in AI because we as humans, everything is attached to how we first see ourselves and that context, and then how we move into the social environment. And now we've included our friends at AI. So thanks for sharing your things. Now I'm going to say these are going to get a little wordy. I know that, there's a thing with design, and especially for those of you who are visual learners. But I wanted to share with you all, if you weren't on the post, if you didn't vote in the poll, if you didn't see what your colleagues were sharing, what were these early sentiments? And I loved this conversation. This was amazing. So someone said, and some of these I abbreviated, you'll notice, is why we have, the ellipsis. I think that's the right word for that. I'm just coming down off my coffee, sort of. It's still settling in. AI can simulate, or it was Rallis Fasnacht who put in emulate. And I appreciated even that distinction. Y'all, the beauty of conversation and starting this important conversation and understanding our own sense of self and emotional intelligence is to understand that there's nuance in a lot of things, and certainly with AI. So I appreciated that he shared this comment came up ×2, and I put in brackets emulate because I had said simulate in the poll. However, he had made this distinction of emulate, and I was like, ooh, this gives me something to chew on. So a couple folks said it can simulate or emulate it, but it can't actually sense. It can't actually sense emotion. Someone said that AI can be coded to simulate emotion, sort of like, so there is a correlation to what we saw with this first one that I just talked about that a couple people said. But I was so fascinated by this comment that it's sort of like a sociopath who, at first I was like, whoa, where is this going? But a sociopath who feels no actual emotion, right? I said that emotion's at the heart of EQ. But if you can't feel it, so this person said, it can learn through studying and education, which we know that the better we prompt, the better typically AI does. But is it sensing or feeling? And this person says it's like a sociopath who can learn through studying and education what words to say and what nonverbal cues to signal in order to convey emotion. I'd love to hear if y'all think that it can pick up on nonverbal cues, by the way. Obviously, this person brought that in. Someone said that it's been coded with empathy for certain situations. Now, this gets back to when we talk about who's coding, right? And the DEIB work that I do, we talk about this in the talent space, in how we retain folks, in equity work, about what is being coded and the bias that exists. I'm not even going to go on that tangent of a rabbit hole, because several of you out there that I've talked to have had a lot of these conversations around. We've talked about some of the things, particularly visually, with images that get represented, and it is very telling. I will say that. If you want to have that conversation, pull up in my DMs. But saying, I think it will know all emotions and be able to do them correct. So that's interesting, right? Understanding what we're putting in is giving it the output that we want, but we also have to prompt it, right? Someone said it will get harder to tell the difference over time. We're seeing a lot of that. We see stuff with deep fakes and all of these things. So we have to be very discerning. And one of the things that we've been starting to do with our clients and having conversations with our partners and in our community is talking about, how do we put the right protocol, security measures? How do we prevent? There's been such conversation around cybersecurity, right? And risk. And this really, frankly, does elevate the conversation. We've been having conversations with our insurance company. I have been doing my own deep research. We've been having conversations as a team and as partners to understand, what does this look like, right? What does it look like to do this the right way and the safe way to protect your business from risk, but also help your team understand how to do it? Because what we're seeing is people are flying around with all this stuff and no one is really sharing with them how to do it or how to use it. And that's a huge part. That's a risk right there. So if you are out there and you haven't trained your team on that, there is such an upskilling and a space for us all to understand what is going on. So more early sentiments. I really appreciated this one. They being AI, because they are and can be different from one time to the next. We know that with the right prompts, we might, in a different prompt, we might get a different answer. Someone said that when they react emotionally to something and it's negative, if they learn something about it, they can come to an understanding and shift from that first reaction or response. It will be different. And I love that, because that, again, that is emotional intelligence. From a personal context, we can scan. I shared this in a presentation the other day where I talked about the self-scan that we have to do for our triggers, for our awareness in the context of emotional intelligence. A lot of times that represents either showing up as emotion, because our bodies are always in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and we have to filter some of that in order to help support that, which means we need to make sure we do it in AI. But so emotions will come up. We also can physically feel what might be happening. So I at times have been known to clench my jaw if I'm feeling something, or I might squeeze my hands. You might feel that your body gets warm. This is what we can do to self-scan. What is physically happening and how can we interrupt what's going on from the personal context and understand what we're feeling, thinking, what are our belief systems. This is also how we interrupt bias. And then go into the social context, right? This is what allows us to read the room, to not put our foot in our mouth, so to speak, to understand and have empathy for other humans. Okay, now that I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. AI, someone said, can be coded to simulate emotion, sort of like a sociopath. Actually, we read that one already. So looking at that difference over time, I think I might have done that slide twice. Accountability, right? Okay, so I said that the prompt that started it all is AI emotionally intelligent? Share your case. So what happened from there? I keep wanting to scroll my mouse down. I'm used to not in the live stream portion and doing this, scrolling it down, but I have to click because of the way it is here in the live stream. So when I asked it that, this is what ChatGPT, and again, some of these are going to get wordy because it's literally saying, I'm literally going back to what it said. It said, the classic, can a toaster feel things question. I promise you, I laughed so hard, I almost fell out of my chair. But I appreciated what it brought back and the honesty. So when we think about humans and how we reason and where our logic comes in, it was interesting to see what ChatGPT, which I should have named that was my AI of choice. That is what we use here at CEPHR primarily. But this is what it pulled up, and I won't read it all, but I appreciated that it said, kind of the hot take, the quick take was, it can simulate emotional intelligence. It can't experience it. which was my thought all along and what I felt, even when I went in and asked that question. And even when I was inspired by the perk with what they had in their culture community and what they shared there. But I thought it was so interesting to say, you know what? When we think about equity and we think about bringing in all the perspectives, we want to understand what is it that other people are feeling. And had I not asked that question, I wouldn't have gotten all your beautifully diverse things that we just talked about and more. That was a sample of what people had put in there. But it's so important to understand that there are different perspectives, there are nuance. And when we want to be emotionally intelligent beings, fun fact, we are as humans, then we have to pull in other perspectives, other insights. Even AI can help us do that. But we need to understand the distinctions between what makes humanity thrive, especially in the workplace, versus AI. You've probably heard about this concept of work slop and how, when we're not training people, when we're not giving them the tools that they need, that is what happens. Or we see it on LinkedIn. Let's be honest, we probably see it in our emails, in newsletters that come out, all the things. And I'm not saying don't use it. It serves a great purpose. It has many uses. And it is important, though, to look at how are you using it and how emotionally intelligent are we as we prompt it? What responsibilities do we have? And so I just thought it was funny that it said, the AI can pick up patterns and feelings. And when I tell you, so I did ask, my AI's name is Nova. I asked the AI ChatGPT to name itself, and it gave me a few options. And I liked Nova because it was innovative, and I knew we were going to do work, and I knew that I wanted it to start to represent my brand and my energy and what CEPHR represents. It now knows our values, all of the things, and it pulls from that every single time we're doing stuff. Sometimes I have to rein it back in to say, wait, that's not exactly what we're going for here. So I appreciate that it is picking up on those patterns. It's a vibe. It is a whole energy vibe. And Nova kind of talks like me. It's a little creepy, to be honest. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And I know a few of you who will be watching this either live on replay, because we talk about this a lot, have named your chats, your chat GPTs or your AI. So it can adjust for tone based on context, as we should be able to do as humans, right? This is what signals feelings when we pick up these patterns. It is what puts us in this comfort. I love that it said hype mode, but it will adjust its tone. This is how we get brand voice, and we have it represent, as I shared that it does with CEPHR. But interestingly, it picked up on this. It can offer emotion aware suggestions, such as conflict de-escalation. In the work that we do here at CEPHR, there is a huge piece of change management and conflict de-escalation. I know that there are some wonderful people who do this work in my network, and who I'm grateful to call colleagues and friends. But this is an area where we might have to be careful, right? Because AI does not know, it can't fully read the room, right? It can't necessarily pick up on those cues, those social cues, those very human, empathetic things that we can when we notice it can't notice someone's face, right? It can't see that. And we have the opportunity to feel and sense an energy in the room. So that's one difference there. Okay. So I want to talk about the rest of the response that came up, and there's a couple of slides on this. So what I found fascinating when I prompted it and said, share your case. Tell me why. You don't just tell me if you can sense it or not. Tell me why. Pitch me a case, right? It says it models emotion recognition and emotion response through data, not lived experience. So related to what I just shared, I found that so fascinating. And this, for me coming in, but I was introducing my own bias into the situation, is really what was happening, right? I know that it may pick up emotion, that it knows humans have emotions, that it knows the context of certain things, and there's certain best practices. When we look at organizational psychology, human psychology, there are certain things it's just going to know, right? From a pure research data perspective. And that's cool. It helps us out a lot in a lot of things. But that's through, those types of data, and it can only have what it has, right? So it's limited. Same like us as humans. So there is a correlation there to maybe our levels of emotional intelligence between AI and what it can recognize and what we can as humans. But it can't have a lived experience. It can experience or know of, right, someone else's lived experience, but it can't live Tiffany's lived experience. It can't understand all of that and the nuance that comes along with it. So I appreciated that it talked about, yeah, there's no lump in the throat. There's not that kind of emotional reaction that we get with EQ. To know, what do we do next? What do we do next with that? So I appreciated some of the feelings that it pulled in, the ouch or the wow. I've seen mine do some interesting adjectives and exploratory language in terms of emulating those feelings, right? But it's not really self-aware. But there are some ways I think that maybe it does a better job than some of us humans. I loved how it said, I can't lose sleep. I don't lose sleep. Well, goodness, I wish that was me, especially in this perimenopause phase. So the thing too that I loved is it talks about it's a label, not an emotion. And in diversity work, we talk about that a lot because in this context and in our society, there are so many labels. And that can get in the way of us interacting as humans and frankly in the workplace. Share with me your thoughts. Okay, so the bottom line, Nova says, is AI's emotional intelligence, in quotes, and it is an intelligent being. Is it a being? But it's patterned understanding plus skilled performance minus actual feeling. I would love to know what y'all think about that. Interestingly, it notes, our emotional intelligence is still what makes interaction meaningful. And I wholly agree. It's how we get true impact. It's how we get the essence of psychological safety and feeling like we belong, and the safety of a workplace and the health and well-being of a workplace, and feeling like we are supported, seen, heard, valued, appreciated. So I was pleased to see that it says we create the humanity in the loop. Yes, because we are the humans, right? All right. I'm going to scream, oh, yay, people are there. You're there. I am maybe a little late, but this is how we're going. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Leslie. Welcome, welcome. Speaking of conflict, there's Leslie. And if I know that Carol Jean is in the audience probably somewhere too, or she's preparing for her own live. She is also doing these things related to conflict. So we have some great folks in the audience here who can help support you. All right. Share your thoughts, please, with us. Okay. Sometimes the shade is real. So sometimes it's sunny and sometimes it's shady. I I tell you, this was the grand experiment for me, and I had way too much fun going down this rabbit hole of things as I kept prompting AI. And I wanted to share some of what I observed in this process and how it relates to AI and emotional intelligence. What I saw is that, and this is not the first time, but it will shamelessly roll people and tools under the bus. I asked it some prompts, and as I was creating some of the graphics or having it help out and sharing some ideas that I had and help me create, this is an area where truly this is doing better than we are, because I am not that great at images, whether I'm drawing them or doing anything, but I'm very creative and I have vision, right? This is where one way that it can help us. So I was asking it to help support, and it was saying, oh, well, Excel can't do that. Of course, Excel didn't do it, and really quite rolling it under the bus. Same thing with Canva. So they weren't playing nice together. And it's like, oh, Canva's not going to do this. I tried to drop the link. Even yesterday, I was working on something else, and it said, oh, this is bringing a Beyonce glow up energy. It's thinking it's Beyonce, but that's not what I asked it to do. And it rolled Dolly, the image creator, under the bus. And I was like, wow, there's a whole lot of shade going on here. So it even called things stubborn. So when we think about emotional intelligence in humans and leadership and how we interact with each other in the workplace, I probably don't want to run around calling people stubborn. I probably have enough sense not to do that. Or sometimes we know that happens behind closed doors, right? But sometimes tools don't play together. And we as humans we have logic and reasoning to try to understand that. AI can help us try to do that. But here was a sense where I went, wow, as humans, we are definitely, we definitely win this one in terms of emotional intelligence. Did you just chuck these tools under the bus? I would wonder what you would do to a person. We see that happening in the workplace sometimes, right? But those are things that we really want to steer away from. This is where our emotions and regulating those when we're dysregulated, either because of our environment, maybe there was an experience, our lived experience, right? Maybe we don't feel safe. that can dysregulate us. And then we might run around and call people stubborn, or we might not show up as the best leaders that we could be. So certainly there are some people, like I said, who don't have this level of awareness, but it is something that we want to be always scanning. How do I show up in empathy? And AI can't do that, but we can. So this I just wanted to share because I thought it was hilarious, and also and it was entertaining for sure. Like, you just rolled them under the bus. So also it has a tendency to want to please, right? So again, some observations. It doesn't always realize when it's making mistakes. As humans, we have to, as an HR and culture professional, as an almost 18-year practitioner, I know different things about HR. I've spent a lot of time with clients and culture and community, and I know what helps people feel like they can belong. And as we get to know people in these relationships, we're emotionally intelligent enough to understand that some things we're just not going to say or do, and that there's a different way that we relate to different people. So we also understand that we can, hopefully, if we're being accountable, own our mistakes, right? AI doesn't always realize that. So what I did notice is that, and of course, if you use AI, you know that it will correct itself, right? It will continue to do that, even if it keeps getting it wrong over and over again. There are days when I'm like, are you kidding me? But again, back to being human centric, when you ask it to do and you ask it to do, and this can be the same in the workplace, right? Sometimes people need to understand that there's a mistake made, and they want to own that, but there has to be safety in them wanting to do it, even if they get it wrong. But it's our human side, our emotional intelligence, our empathy that shows up, our concern for care and connecting it to the mission, vision, and value that allows us to be emotionally intelligent beings and to not harm people in their workplace experiences or in our human interactions. Versus AI doesn't know the difference, right? It is frankly a skill that we could use as humans to upskill. But I always think, too, where this kept getting it wrong, even with this prompt and other things as I'm working through my work weeks and working with AI. But there's such a tendency to want to please its human counterparts that frequently Nova will say, I'm going to get it right. You're right. This shouldn't have happened. And as humans, we understand that there needs to be a little bit of intervention. And yes, there is a need for empathy, but we might need to do something differently as well. Okay. So is it sensing? That was one of the questions. Here's what I observed and how it relates. So as I was going through different pieces for this live stream, for the, content there, it got stuck and it didn't produce what it needed to, but it kept saying it would. So it also is now making me think, where was the accountability? And this is a big thing that we deal with in our world at CEPHR, and I'm sure in your workplaces and stuff. I'd love to hear some stories where we see that it's not always producing what it needs. It keeps saying that it will. It keeps promising and promising. And then I'm like, where is my stuff? I asked for it. Not that I would ever talk to a human that way, but attempting to drive some accountability because I was frustrated, right? That's an emotion. This is me checking my emotional intelligence, but also asking for what I need. And it kept saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So finally I called it out, but at CEPHR, we like to say call forward or call in because people don't like to be called out, right? We want to do this in a humanistic way with emotional intelligence. But it didn't end well. It said, after all this time, when I said, you promised me this and I didn't get it, it said, totally fair. You shouldn't have had to ask. That's on me to surface earlier next time. So then it made me pause and go, if I was not as aware as I was, I might think that it was exercising some empathy, that it was exercising some human level emotional intelligence, because couldn't this be something that a conversation I would have maybe had with my team member or something? So I appreciated the recognition, which is a component of emotional intelligence, right? That self-scan, understanding the personal context of how we're wired and what triggers us and how we can reason and logic and move forward and how our emotions show up. But it can't really do it to that level. But it mimics, right? I would argue that this mimics that in this scenario here. The loop needs the human still. Yes, Leslie, it needs the human. And this is what, I think, interestingly, I'd love to hear from you all if you feel like, I lost my question. Dang perimenopause. It needs this human loop, right? But I'm wondering when or if maybe what your thoughts are on when you think it does, right? Or when does it maybe recognize that? Because I feel like I do this tug and pull with it sometimes. I'd be curious. Jonathan is saying, there's a little bit of lag of it coming up. Uh, AI for me can be a bit sycophantic. I hope I pronounced that right. It's something where you have to have your brain switched on and be aware, right? Thank you, Jonathan. This is our human loop, right? As Leslie said too, of emotional intelligence. We have to have this level of awareness. I'm really appreciating you all sharing your thoughts. And oh, I see another one coming in. Fantastic. Oh, well, thank you, Tish. I am glad that you're here. Keep those comments coming and please share with each other. This is one of my favorite things about sharing my own knowledge, sharing space and time and energy with humans is I do like Nova. She's great. But I'm helping teach her. And one of my favorite things is learning from you all. And every time I do a presentation, I learn from other people. And my favorite part is that you learn from each other. So please share your thoughts with each other. As we wrap up, just want to share, you know, this was one experience, right? This was one experience that I had, and I'm curious for some of the thoughts, for some of the experiences that you all have had as you've worked with AI. I hear a lot of stories, and one of the things, and I'm going to advance for this, is looking at, how do we plant these seeds of growth? Part of that is what we're doing and sharing in this chat and having this conversation, opening up the conversation, because I think inherently that this wasn't me trying to challenge your intellectual intelligence, though I think that that can be good sometimes. But more, this was a curious question, which is my favorite kind, right? To understand how, as together collective humans, do we plant the seeds of growth for how we use AI? I am always so curious about the use cases for AI. What are other people doing? You see so many prompts coming out, and I'm learning how to use it. I'm sure you all are too. And this is really how we're going to get there. We might see some cracks in it. We might have this frustration. We might be like, what is it talking about? It's hallucinating again, right? But understanding that we are always going to be that human loop, as we've been talking about, we will always be the intersection of what needs to happen in terms of how it can reason, it can have logic, it can pull data and research, and it can do all these amazing things. But really where we're going to see the growth and the impact, and frankly, in my belief, and you can tell me if you think differently, how this is going to advance in how it's already rapidly advancing, it's really going to advance in its true state, and the innovation that's going to come is through us, right? We're the ones who feed it. And of course there's autonomous things happening, but we are the intersection, we are the brains behind it, right? We still have these very human hearts, and it's our human brains that are going to feed that at the end of the day. Okay, it's just checking comments. All right. I love this. Okay, so there is an organization called Curio 412 out of Pittsburgh, and I met this organization when I lived there, and I am proud to have gotten a Powered by Purpose award from them. So this came across my feed yesterday in their newsletter. And it was great timing. This quote between Social Enterprise Alliance that they had quoted in their newsletter, and Doug Lessing, I believe, was the person's name. So it talked about staying human, using AI as an assistant, and how it's not a replacement for our human creativity and empathy. And when I saw that, it freaked me out a little bit, because it was almost exactly when I prompted Nova in the beginning to say, share your case. Can you have emotional intelligence? And when I saw it, it stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, couldn't have read that. You couldn't have scripted that better, right? But it was also energy. And it was also an opportunity to understand that we are starting to think about these things as humans, and that we understand that we are the core to how empathy shows up in that space, because it can't think that. It can mimic it, but we can code it, right? We can have it show up as our brand voice, but it's never going to be a substitute for what we bring and the heart that we bring. And frankly, our own intellectual intelligence and coupled with our emotional intelligence is such a powerful tool. We talk about this often in leadership, and people hear the word empathy and they think, oh, well, I don't know what it's like in their lived experience. Well, neither does AI. It's our job to collectively understand each other and to be able to understand what is the relationship, right? What is the intersectionality? How do we show up responsibly as we use AI and use our very human creativity and empathy and our emotional intelligence to show up with not just our heads to what we feed to a prompt or how we show up to our work, but with our hearts and our emotional intelligence and how we pull in the very human experiences of what we're going through, how I'm, pulling in everything that you all have been sharing up to the date of this live and through this live. It is so important that we make sure that we keep the human at the center of it. And it sounds so cliche, right? We hear that robots are taking over, they're going to take all the jobs and all these things. And certainly I don't want to be doom and gloom. I also don't want to, pretend that there are not very human intervention things that we need to do in order to still show up for each other as communities, as family, as friends, and as leaders and in these workplaces. So we have responsibilities and we have accountabilities to our teams and to each other collectively as humans. I want to still walk into a room and as the CEO of this company, I want to still show up in rooms where I'm needed and where I belong as a human, as Tiffany, but also as a person who shows up for the person who is, I notice that something's just not, maybe they don't seem like themselves, right? Or maybe I notice someone could use a little bit of support and I want to be that person. I never want that to be something that doesn't happen, but we only get that through these experiences and through showing up with compassion. You don't have to know their exact experience, but we can understand also. Maybe you're not there today, right? I have days where it's hard for me to show up fully because right now I'm caregiving. I'm going through a lot of things. We're winding down our year here at CEPHR and the pace is fast and we're running, running, running. But I want to always be there for people with the best me that I can show up with. And some days that means I have to pull back. But this requires that human emotional intelligence. And for me to be emotionally intelligent enough to understand that. Leslie is sharing that she's finding that her relationship with AI is ever evolving and she will continue to enjoy the journey. Same here. I'm going to continue to work with Nova and she's probably going to continue to, I just called her she. I'm never sure. Tell me what you call your AI. If you name your AI, is it an it? Is it a they? I have seen, when we talk about use cases, I've seen people do different things there too. And I'm super, super curious. So I'm just curious what you're all thinking there too. Wonderful. Well, thank you for spending time, and we're all in this together. Hopefully, you're not freaked out by birds. If you are, I apologize in advance, but we're all in this together. We will continue to advance technology and learn together through processes like what we're doing today and understanding. It's really that understanding, right? We can learn more. There's all sorts of tools. I encourage you to try those on for size and see how they fit. But what we've been doing here is also trying on what mirrors our values. What are these companies? What do they look like? What do they value? Because we are value centered, which is part of what makes us unique at CEPHR and why I describe us, one of the reasons I describe us as boutique. We're very values based. And under our strategic excellence value, we want to make sure that the tools that we're using support our clients, support us optimizing our workforce and our work flows, but at the same time that no one is going to be harmed behind that. So as we're doing this and as you're thinking about it and as you move through your journey of AI, which is for all of us ever evolving, let's commit to teaching each other. We're in this together, but let's commit to also keeping the human at the center as well. I would love to hear if there are any questions. I saw some things in the chat. I'm going to double check that as well. If you are watching on Team Replay, or if you're on live and the question just hasn't come to you yet, the thought hasn't come to you yet, please do share with us because I am so curious. I want to get back in the comments and understand what people are thinking. I also know that because of how Restream does, that this is not me being shady and chucking it under the bus. I'm just stating facts. Sometimes we don't always see anything. So please do not think that I'm ignoring your very important thought or question. I really, really appreciate it. Leslie, you are welcome for the insights. And thank you for always sharing your insight. I am really excited for what comes next for the future of work under what we can have for this technology, the advancements of it, and how we're going to continue to understand how we can have it be even more responsibly used. So I thank you for your time. Please make sure that you put your comments, your thoughts in here. I'm really looking forward to that. Let's keep the conversation going. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me, write in the comments. I am so excited about just continuing this conversation and for the time. I'm so grateful. We're in a season of thanks for those of us who celebrate Thanksgiving here in the US or honor it, commemorate it in some way. I know that there's a lot of things that come with that as well. So I don't take that away from anyone. But we should always be in a season of gratitude. And frankly, I'm grateful for AI. I'm grateful for the advancements in technology that continue to help us do the best work to impact people. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And we always need to remember that humans will always be at the center of it because we are emotionally intelligent and we have such a gift to make sure that we use that. So, we do have our newsletter that's coming out actually tomorrow. I'm pushing it a little early because of the US holiday here. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to it. We share different topics every month. And this month, I'm going to be doing a little bit deeper of a science dive on some of the things that we talked about today and pulling in some of your thoughts and votes and all those comments. So keep it coming. DM me with any questions. If you're more curious about emotional intelligence and some of the work that we're doing there, or just HR and culture, feel free, or you just want to have a good old AI conversation, please feel free to pull up in my DMs. I would love to hear from you. And I thank you all for your time today and continue to share your thoughts and questions with us in the comments. So have a great rest of your day.